Good morning, fellas, and welcome back to Me Plays Games, where we play games. My name is Matt, and today we're gonna do something a little bit different. Today, I'm gonna show you a bunch of techniques you can use to beat Super Mario Maker 2 levels as quickly as possible. These tips will help you get world records on levels, since there's a lot of subtle stuff in here that isn't very obvious at first glance. For more speedrunning videos, subscribe to Me Plays Games. We've also got a Discord server. You can find the link to that in the description. Alright, let's get started. First up, let's talk about the basics of acceleration. One important rule of thumb here is that Mario accelerates faster on the ground than he does in the air, so whenever you have the choice between running or jumping, you should usually choose to run. The main exception to this rule is ice. Since Mario takes a long time to gain traction on ice, it's usually fastest to do a small jump, then start running. Next up is something you'll recognize if you've watched my videos on the new Super Mario Bros. Series. If you're up against a wall, the fastest way to accelerate is by wall jumping, as opposed to simply running forwards. The smaller the wall jump, the better, so you'll just want to tap the button quickly while you're up against the wall. This is one of the weirder acceleration tricks, but check out the Yoshi back tongue. Basically, if you have a green Yoshi, you can stick out his tongue, then turn around to accelerate in the opposite direction faster. I have no idea why it works like that, but we take those. Sometimes in speedrun levels, you'll come across a falling sideways spring. Obviously, they're there to get you to top speed faster, but it's possible to speed things up even more. If you jump into the spring, you'll get that speed boost sooner, meaning you'll get to top speed ever so slightly faster. Essentially, you're meeting the spring halfway instead of waiting for it to fall all the way down to you. The 3D World game style has some slightly different mechanics when it comes to acceleration because of the game it's based on. In that game, when you hold the run button, you accelerate for a bit, then you get a speed boost that brings you to your top speed. So whenever you get that top speed, you want to maintain it as long as possible, because it's pretty difficult to regain momentum. You can only reach this speed while running, so it's especially important to stay on the ground whenever you can in 3D World. Now let's move on and talk about slopes. The way you should tackle these depends on which type of slope they are. For gentle slopes, it's faster to slide down, but for steep slopes, it's faster to run down. In New Super Mario Bros. U and Super Mario 3D World, it's faster to ground pound slopes as opposed to sliding down. One thing that's true in every game style though is that you should never run up slopes. Always jump up if you can. Keep in mind that you can't slide down slopes in the Super Mario Bros. Style at all. Not sure why, but oh well. Next up, let's talk about some mechanics relating to the ground pound. If we take a look at this level, there's a muncher blocking a door and a POW block Mario can ground pound. You might think all you need to do is ground pound the POW, then go through the door, and that does work, but it's actually fastest to ground pound then immediately jump when you hit the ground. This cancels Mario's ground pounding animation, which allows him to move again faster than if you just tried to start running again. Next up, let's talk about ground pound canceling. Let's say you're speedrunning a level and you come to a section where you have to fall for a long time. If the fall is long enough, you should consider ground pounding. This is decently fast, but there's another optimization you can do. Yeah, you could jump out of the ground pound, which is decent, but it's actually best to cancel the ground pound entirely by pressing up on the D-pad or control stick right before landing. This is because Mario's animation of getting back up on his feet after a ground pound is very slow, so you'll want to avoid these if there's nothing at the bottom you need to pound. The next trick saves one frame and it's pretty difficult to do at full speed, but let's talk about corner boosting. Essentially, this is jumping into the corner of a block from below. Mario will be inside the block for a split second, and in this scenario, the game immediately pushes Mario out of the wall. This small push forward saves one frame, and you can do it in plenty of places throughout a level. A more general tip is that if you can, you should avoid changing directions on the ground. This is because turning around while running will put Mario in a skidding animation, which is very slow. The best way to prevent this depends on which game style you're playing. In Super Mario Bros. 1, 3, and World, the best way to combat this is by jumping into a wall, then turning around while you're in midair. But in the other two styles, you have the ability to wall jump, so it's best to do that instead. Once again, the smaller the wall jump, the better. Next, let's talk about conveyor belts. First off, you should never run on conveyors that are moving in the opposite direction, because whatever momentum you have before stepping on them will essentially be completely gone. If possible, you should jump as often as you can while you're on backwards moving conveyors. On the other hand, you want to spend as much time on forward moving ones as possible. Make sure that when you reach the end of a conveyor belt moving in the same direction as you jump, because jumping will allow you to keep the speed boost the conveyor gave you for longer. There are also a few things to note about power-ups. For one, collecting power-ups and taking damage frees the in-game timer for a split second, which means that if you're going for a world record on the level, it may be possible to pick up a power-up without wasting any time. A more specific tip here is that if you have a cape feather, your flying speed is ever so slightly faster than your running speed. From one flying power-up to another, let's take a quick look at the Super Leaf. When you're flying as Raccoon Mario, you can press the run button right before the jump button, which will allow you to keep P-speed longer and let you fly further. This technique is similar to dash flying, a tech I talked about in my new Super Mario Bros. 2 video. This is one of the weirder mechanics of Mario games, but it's been around since Super Mario World. If you're playing an underwater level, you can hold an item to swim faster. This also works with Green Yoshi, since he can hold stuff in his mouth. And finally, let's talk about donut blocks in 3D World. For one reason or another, these blocks fall 1 frame faster if you crouch while you're on top of them. Once again, not sure why, but this is the 21st century. If the question is why, the answer is why not. And that'll do it for this video. Hopefully you learned something new from it. If you did, leave a like and consider subscribing to this channel. Leave a comment letting me know what game you'd like to see me cover next. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. Alright, good night fellas, sleep well.